Today we're going back to the 80s and assessing one of the most iconic horror films in all of existence. I'm talking, of course, about Poltergeist.
No, son, not a poltergeist! No! What's a poltergeist?
The 1982 movie that may or may not have been co-directed or fully directed by Steven Spielberg himself.
Get me Steven Spielberg.
He's unavailable.
Then get me his non-union Mexican equivalent.
With everything from child-eating trees to musical chairs, creepy clouds, and weird TV static, this movie has it all.
Chairs was moving, blood was pouring from the sink, trees was giving Clara her comeuppance, and then corpses tried swimming with the foxy. Talk about the blind leading the blind.
Join BP, Coop and myself as we analyse the original Poltergeist and briefly mention the 2015 remake. This is the Complete Guide to Horror Movies podcast.
Welcome back, listeners, lurkers, and fiends to the Complete Guide to Horror Movies podcast. Today we're discussing the acclaimed supernatural masterpiece Poltergeist, released in 1982 to critical fanfare, co-written by Steven Spielberg, Michael Grais, and Mark Victor, with the film being directed by acclaimed horror legend Tobe Hooper, rest in peace, who is of course best known for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm Coop, and as always I am joined by my lovely co-hosts Justin and Byron. Let's get started. As we all know, this is a movie that is highly regarded in the horror fandom, and for good reason. Not only was it a widely appreciated success, but it is a wonderful talking point for production trivia and, of course, some of the darker stories associated with the cast and crew who were involved in the making of this beast during and after the release of this film.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, don't do that, honey. You want to see Mommy lying in a cigar box covered with licorice?
This is definitely up there and it's super nostalgic for me. It's another one that my mum showed me fairly early on into my foray into horror. So we can thank her for this once again. Yeah, creepy scenarios. The set design's really good. Some good acting here and there. We'll get into that. There's a bit of bad acting here and there. And yeah, pretty much perfectly executed for its time. Great gateway for anyone new to the genre. And can definitely appeal to a larger audience as well. Justin, I could be wrong, but I think we watch this one when we were younger in high school, maybe one of the horror movie nights. I don't quite remember. I wasn't too sure when I was thinking about it. Are you a fan of the film, and what are your overall thoughts?
I'm a big fan of this film. And you know what? We probably did watch this at your place once, but I was almost always the first one to pass out. So, you know, maybe we did watch it and I caught little glimpses of it. But I remember seeing this movie when I was 6 or 7 years old with my mum and my sister. I remember not finding it scary at the time, but that's because I also watched a ton of other horror movies at that age. So, but you know, it has grown on me over the years where there's a lot of really great scenes in this movie. It is so iconic and legendary, and it deserves that status. I'll save all my other talking points for favorite and least favorite parts.
Excellent. Byron, what are your thoughts on Poltergeist?
Well, controversially, I don't think I've actually ever seen it in full until now. I know.
Wow.
Crazy. I definitely have seen the 2015 one, which we will mull over very quickly.
No!
I didn't actually mind it. I was up and down during it, but it succeeded in the end. It won me over. Straight off the bat, I think visually and some of the effects still hold up now. Some don't, but some are really good. I was like, wow, for 1982. And I didn't know Spielberg was actually attached to this, so it sort of made sense once that all kind of came together.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the scene behind me, which you see in a lot of memes and whatnot, is actually from Poltergeist. So I'm pretty late to the party. But look, I can see why it's up there. You know, as one of the top horror movies of all time. Definitely has that sort of staying power. Like you said, anyone can really watch it.
Oh, honey, you're going to ruin your eyes. This is not good for you.
for a 1982 film, and we've done a lot of 80s and 90s films with horror. This would be, I think, top tier.
How is it?
Great, Miss Freeling.
Okay, Bluto, give me my cup.
You sure make good coffee.
Looking at favorite parts, I've definitely got a few. I think the set design on this is really good. I love I mean, of course, there's some CGI effects and special effects in this, and yeah, some of them are a bit dated, but some of them do hold up quite well. Your background, BP, I know a lot of people know this little tidbit of trivia. Real skeleton.
Yeah.
And the skeletons used in that scene were real. And to my knowledge, I don't think they told the actors until after they'd filmed it, which is a bit shady, I reckon. But it is, very interesting trivia point.
Trinity reminds me of a dear friend of mine from New Orleans. She's dead.
Heather O'Rourke, who plays Carol Ann, does a really good job in this. She's kind of like my partner last said when we were watching sort of the start of this movie that she's like saccharine sweet, like very, just like sweet little girl, but at the same time, like really creepy as well, the way that she interacts with the mum and talking about, the TV people and all that kind of thing is, really, really well done.
Tweety doesn't like that smell.
Sweetheart, Tweety can't smell a thing.
Put a flower with them.
The scares in this movie are quite good. I feel like this sound is a big part of this movie. There's a scene where after Carol Ann has been sort of sucked into the ether of the house, where the mother, Diane, comes and knocks on the door because she's just like thinking, yearning for a time where she could just knock in and check on her daughter, but she's not there. And then she opens the door a bit and there's that big shriek, and then she just pulls the door shut and just like has a breakdown.
I'm sorry.
It's just so powerful. The way that it builds on the tension throughout the movie to, the big climax at the end is really good, really well filmed.
I guess this is the big climax. Hope you don't mind if I fake it.
Big shout out to the physical effects in this. It just makes all the difference. I know we talk about this on the podcast all the time and just how much more weight that carries. Of course, there's some special effects needed in this when you got hovering, things hovering around the house and looking into the closet and all of that. But yeah, really well done for its time. Maybe dated now, but like I'll always look back on it fondly. Justin, what are some of your favorite parts of Poltergeist?
I have two in particular that I want to talk about. So the first one is the face peeling scene, because that still gets under my skin. I just looked up a Reddit thread about it and how it actually nearly got the R rating for this movie. Yeah. And even though this is, a 1982, I think this was released, and it's clearly obvious that with the puppetry and everything that it's fake, but it's still just like, ugh, like I hate it so much. Even just like the use of all the blood dripping and just everything. And then it's revealed that it's just a hallucination sequence. But this is how you do hallucination sequences. Take note, smile too.
I haven't been to your place in like a year. Since you said I was a stupid, opportunistic cunt, remember?
The clown scene. So I remember watching this clown scene when I was a kid, and I remember my mum saying like, oh, don't watch this. This will be too scary. And I thought it was just going to be the part where the son looks under the bed expecting the clown to be there. And then, of course, he looks up and the clown's right behind him. That scared the fucking shit out of me as a kid. I'll never forget just being like, fuck. Like, I wasn't expecting it. Like, it was such a good, really great example of it. Jump scare done well with suspense. It's not just, boom, 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 like really fast, flashy images of a clown's face. It's really building up to that suspense and tapping into that childhood fear of maybe thinking there is something under the bed or in the closet. And those two sequences just really stand out to me. I do want to touch on more of the iconography of this entire movie. Like my Zoom background with her hands on the TV, like everyone knows what movie that's from. Like it's just done so well. And even though this is an old CRT box TV, it really it puts it into the time period of the 80s and the 90s when those TVs were more common. But I actually think that that really helps with the aesthetic of this.
Mhm.
I mean, the 2015 remake, they try and recreate this scene where it's all the hands on the plasma TV that's widescreen. It doesn't hold the same weight. It's not the same scariness. Like, yeah. But this is favorite parts. Yeah, I have nothing but positive things to say about this movie. It's just so good. I always loved watching and rewatching the entire Poltergeist trilogy. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. There is something creepy about those old box TVs and the static channel and just the way that I mean, a lot of people may not know this, but back in the day, TV didn't run all night. It would run till about midnight. In America, they would play, the American anthem, and then it was just static until about 6 a.m. And it was cool that they got to play on that, and that, the witching hour and that kind of thing's really good. I'm glad that you touched on the face peeling scene. I mean, that is, yeah, really, really good. One thing I forgot to mention was the scene. I think you actually put a short up on our channel of it. Was the stacking of the chairs.
Oh, yes.
So good. They shot that so well. It's so creepy, and you just don't really expect that to happen. And that also adds to the creepy factor with Carol Ann being like, "Oh yeah, no, that wasn't me. I don't see them. Do you see them? But they're there." Yeah, very, very creepy.
I just want to know, how the hell did they film that chair scene? Because I have watched that scene over and over again, especially when I put it on TikTok, and I'm like, okay, they had 5 to 6 seconds to move all the other chairs out of that room.
Yeah.
And then maybe it was a thing where
maybe it's glue and it's plastic or something.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. I reckon
like very lightweight that they just chuck it on top very quickly. But even to do that would be so highly choreographed.
Yes.
Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, the fact that they managed to, and imagine with a lot of practice, or maybe they just got someone from a circus or something who stacks chairs or whatever, or as BP mentioned, maybe they just glued them, moved the chairs, whacked that on top. But the fact that they got that so perfectly in just one shot is, just super impressive for the time and in general.
Lois, have you noticed some spooky things going on ever since Peter brought that skull into the house?
No, what are you talking about?
Well, like the whole business last night with the TV. I'm just saying, maybe we have a poltergeist.
Ryan, there's no such thing as ghosts. It's all Oh, I must have accidentally stacked all those things upside down and then just forgot about it. Yeah, that's probably what happened.
I haven't seen this much denial since John Travolta married Kelly Preston.
You both touched on it. That mirror scene. Oh my God, those visuals are so good. I think even now you could get away with a lot of that. And I didn't know it was like a dream sequence or pretend sort of thing. I was like, oh my God, he's actually pulling apart. So that was really good. I really loved the acting of the mum, and I thought Carol Ann both very convincing in this, given, and also Carol Ann as well with They Hear, because it just is so much better than the 2015 one when they do it. I've got here about the skull. Oh wait, hang on. I think there's a scene where the monster comes out of the closet, but it's the skull and it comes out towards the camera. I put that in there. The tree room scene I thought was really cool. It just sort of coming in. There was a really cool shot. I don't know if anyone picked it up, but I called it the hallway scene, where essentially the hallway starts expanding, going a bit further. Yeah. It's in the 2015 one as well, but in this one, it was done really well. I thought, you don't see this a lot in older films. I just think the visuals in this for 1982, and we're now, 42 years later, I'd say like a good half to 3/4 of it is still believable now. Like, there was obviously like the pissy tornado outside, which was fake, but like the inside stuff. And then, the skeleton scene, like that. Oh shit. Oh my God. And it was like genuine fear. Like, that's a genuine fear face. That's like a quarantine face or something,
For least favorite parts, as I mentioned, some of the acting of some of the side characters are kind of I thought at times the older daughter's portrayal was sort of uneven. At times she was as they mentioned, she's not there a lot. She spends a lot of time with friends, but like sometimes she's like there in the middle of it, freaking out, and sometimes she's just like absent, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Get this! Our house was built on an ancient Indian burial ground. They moved the headstones, but they didn't move the bodies!
Some of the dialogue's probably a little bit dated. I thought that there was an uncomfortable scene where there's the workers in the yard and they're kind of like wolf whistling the daughter, and she basically tells them, to go fuck themselves. And then it cuts to the scene of like the mother smiling, and like I get that it's meant to be like, yeah, you go girl, you tell those fucking nasty men, but maybe just like, hey, don't be a creep around my fucking daughter, or get off my goddamn property. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, that was it was a bit weird. And then they, they're poking their head in and like eating their dinner and stuff. It's just like, why are you just letting these motherfuckers just walk and make you uncomfortable in your own home? Just like get different fucking, get new construction workers, mate. Some of the CGI special effects, of course, very dated. Some of it's a little bit laughable. There's a scene where I thought the design was cool, but it is very silly, where it's in the climax of the movie and the mother's trying to get into the room to get to Carol Ann, and she can't open the door, and there's that big white creepy skull type thing that bursts out at her. It looks a bit silly, and that is, I'm pretty sure that's the MGM lion sound. Like, it was literally the sound of a lion, which I thought was a bit laughable. So I got a bit of a kick out of that. So yeah, probably the dated aspects of this. But like I said, for the time, pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. Justin, least favorite parts?
For me, this is also simultaneously a favorite part. It's the tree scene where it takes Robbo or Robbie, whatever, the younger brother, and I'm just like, the tree's trying to eat him. Okay. It was just a bit left of field. I thought maybe it was going to be something else. Like maybe the tree's just like waving him around, trying to kill him or something. But tree eating someone, it was just a bit, I don't know. It wasn't really that scary. I was just like, oh, okay, this is where it's going. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, why is a tree trying to eat someone? So, but that was just a bit, too much. Also felt that upon further rewatches that I feel like they could have actually added a lot more scares to this. And like this is filled wall to wall with like suspense, like a suspense build up, then a jump scare, or it'll be something creepy that's happening, but I just wanted a bit more payoff. Also, not really a fan of the ending where, it's a bit of a light-hearted approach where they're just like, that's it, we're getting rid of the TV. And it's like, haha, because the TV was how Carol Ann connected with him in the first place. But I was just a bit like, I don't know. It was a bit too much of a like happy ending for me.
They're here! Don't go in there! Oh, I told your dumbass not to go in there!
One person in particular I just wasn't vibing was Tangina Barons, who's played by Zelda.
How dare
Rubinstein.
you?
I know.
You're fired.
The only reason why is because I think it was just a lot of her like yelling and talking for like a long extended period of time in a lot of those bits. And I was just like, can you shut the fuck up? I'm trying to like watch the movie. And she's like, they're trying to be. Yeah. That was my crap. Like I said earlier, the 80s Achilles heel is like the big issue, I guess. Again, not dark enough. I'd like it darker. We like a dark film. Like still dark, but just other issue I had was a bit of pacing. Like I said at the start, I think I liked it at the start. Then probably like 2 quarters into it, I wasn't really. And then it sort of went back up again, and then it sort of finished on a high. It just felt a bit, I don't know, maybe a little bit tightening. I do see the runtime's nearly 2 hours, and like it's interesting comparing it to the 2015 one. I think if it tightened up just a little bit in some areas, that's really all I can sort of think. It's not really much to hate about this movie.
Fair enough.
Fun.
I mean, apart from the Zelda Rubinstein slander, I'll allow it.
I was going to say, fun fact, did you know that Tangina was actually played by Ginger Minge?
Short enough.
Ginger Minge. Girl, did you ever save Carol Ann from the poltergeist in the TV?
So as we know, in 2015 there was a remake of Poltergeist. I'd actually only recently watched it. I didn't like it as much as the original. I don't think, like, obviously, the CGI aspects, was sort of a bit better, but I just feel like it was obviously missing that charm that the original had. I feel like they don't delve as much into the characters as much as the original does. And I feel like that's probably what appealed to a lot of people with Poltergeist is like, there's almost that, like, yes, it is a horror movie, but because of the family dynamic and the way that the characters interact, it could appeal to people that aren't necessarily into horror because it kind of builds on that and there's that comedic value throughout. One of my favorite bits, and I thought that was kind of missing from the new one, was that when they get the paranormal people around and they're like, oh, this thing took 7 hours for it to move and I got it on a time-lapse camera, and they're like, yeah, okay, and then they open the door and everything's just flying around. But then in the new one, they were sort of like, they were a bit skeptical. They were like, oh, he hasn't got a job at the moment, maybe he's just like trying to make this up for a little bit of fame, which I thought was an interesting approach, but I didn't think that it really worked. I definitely preferred the original. And I know you touched on, Justin, that in the original you weren't big on like the sort of the happy ending. I thought the happy ending in the remake was a lot worse, of them like they go to the house inspection and just like, oh, there's a big tree and there's all this old shit with the house, and they just like drive away all happy. I thought that was bit too on the nose. I preferred just like the subtle, yep, nope, TV's staying out of the room. I preferred that. Justin, what were your general thoughts on the 2015 remake of Poltergeist?
So there's a recurring theme with me where movies I watched in the 2010s, I gave a lot of high praise to, and then in subsequent watches realized that I was completely wrong. So I tried to find the Facebook post I made because I saw the remake in Santa Monica, I have to say that. And I remember at the movie theater I went to, everyone loved this movie. And I remember thinking, I didn't love it, but I thought it was serviceable. And the Facebook post I made, I remember giving it a score of like 7 out of 10, I think, for the remake. And now I would never give it that score. I think there were some parts they tried to do to subvert expectations, like the scene with the clown doll, they merged it with the tree scene. And I thought, okay, I wasn't expecting the clown to be a diversion for the tree, because that wasn't what happened in the original. But I just don't think it really worked as well. And then simultaneously, I couldn't figure out if they were making fun of how scary the clown doll is in the original. Like, what kid would want to have that in their room? But they almost make the clown doll in this one too stupid, like too scary looking, to the point that it feels like a parody, like a scary movie or something. Not really a fan of the family. I didn't care. I wasn't rooting for them. I was kind of hoping that the older teenage girl would have died when she's on Snapchat and she hears all the weird gargling sounds and all that. The sound design was cool, but it was such an unnecessary remake. And also I really fucking hated the whole like the drone shots, or like the point of view shots where it's inside the poltergeist world. And you see all the skeletons and all that shit trying to reach out for Carol Ann. It didn't need that. It felt like it was trying too much to be over explanational of the whole situation. No mysteriousness, no mystique. No fun. But I will say this does have a lot more jump scares than the original. That's not a positive though. It's just lazy, scary things. Like, we could turn our podcast episode into a horror movie by being like, or like Byron's talking, and then I'm like that doesn't mean it's a good horror movie though. It just means it's a loud sound. Like, yeah. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm glad that you touched on the clown. I forgot to sort of add that into my least favorite parts about the original. Something that I thought never made sense was like, if this kid's doesn't like this clown. Why is it always set afoot his bed where he needs to throw a blanket over it?
Oh, I wish that scary-looking clown at the end of my bed would go away.
So I kind of liked how in the remake it was something that sort of got revealed. It fell out of the closet and just was left by previous owners, rather than like, I'm going to torture myself, or the parents are going to torture their child by having this clown that the kid obviously doesn't like, just like staring at him every night, which just made no sense. Byron, what were your thoughts on the 2015 remake?
It's not on par with the original. I'm sorry. It's 2015, isn't it?
Yes.
It's very 2015 film in the sense that it felt a lot like Paranormal Activity with a lot of scenes. I was getting those sort of vibes. I know that's not what intentionally they're probably going for, but it just felt like we've done some films, we've seen some films around that time, and it felt very in that moment. As Justin said, couldn't give a shit about the family. There was a really odd script line. I don't know if anyone picked up on it, but because I watched this last night, and it's when the teenage daughter knocks over the TV just at the end before they have to jump out the window, and she jumps on the TV and she's smashing it with a shoe, and she goes, I'm sorry for being a bitch to your dad. And then he's like, not right now, honey, we're trying to get out of this house. But I just thought it was such an odd thing to say, because like in the situation, she was merely just knocking over a TV and smashing it because she didn't want obviously anything to happen. And yeah, she was actually like such an annoying actor in it. And just that kind of annoying teenage girl, like even more annoying.
I just smoked the wrong side of a cigarette. Who wants to go swimming? Oh, this song is about me.
It wasn't on scratch really with anything. It's trying to recapture a lot of the original essence and, magic that made the original so much better than this, and it just failed to do it. I will say there were a couple pros. Justin, you said about the drone you didn't like it. I didn't mind the drone, how it sort of went into this abyss world and kind of showcased I guess more in terms of like tech and CGI that the original could do. I sort of liked how it was sort of floating around and you sort of saw like all the hands and stuff like that. That was actually really cool. I think they probably could have utilized it better, because it also felt very like drones were just in. So we're gonna product placement the shit out of this drone and show what drones are for. So I think there could have been a better implementation of doing it. There was a really good shot of the son when he went to run down the stairs and then got held at the top of the stairs. I thought that was really cool.
That was good. Yeah.
And the sound out of my sound bar, it was like boom, 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 boom. It sounded so cool. The drill scene, no one mentioned it. That was fucking scary. Actually, it was like, oh my God, when the drills are coming out and then his hand got pulled in. But even like the girl saying they're here in the original, it's like they're here. In this one, it was like they're here.
They're here.
And I don't know if that was trying to intentionally make it different, but it just was really blunt. Was not effective.
They're here.
I think they were trying to make it different, because with that, what's her name, Carol Ann, the daughter in particular, for the remake, it's like they were trying to like, let's have the same hair length, the same haircut, but change the hair color.
Yeah.
So they're like, we'll change it a little bit, but not for like a good reason, just to try and seem like as if they were doing things differently, but it wasn't necessarily for the better.
Yeah. And I found the son Griffin, he was a Debbie Downer, and there was a lot of emphasis on this kid in this movie, and it just detracted from what I think the original movie is. And lastly, the girl that was part of the investigation team, she was probably one of the worst extras or worst supporting acts I've seen in a film. She just was there, and her lines were really odd, and I forgot she was there.
This doesn't seem to be a classic haunting. What you have here is probably closer to a poltergeist intrusion.
Honestly, I'm expecting it to be a lot worse, because I know a lot of remakes that come out are they're just there just to be there, just to retain the rights for the film company, and it's usually just a cash grab. I've definitely seen worse remakes, but it didn't really add anything new, which I thought was a shame. Another thing that I forgot to mention, Carrigan Burke, in the remake, the ghost hunter type dude was shit. I thought that was such a bad idea. Once again, shout out to Zelda. She was much better.
the mum in this movie is the mum in Smile 2.
Yes.
Yeah. But I was like, where do I know her from? And then I Wikipedia'd it, and I was like, oh yeah, Rosemary DeWitt, of course.
Gosh, it's been all afternoon with this.
I'm looking at the poster for Poltergeist 2015, and they've got the dumbass clown on the cover. Nothing to do with the original. I don't give a shit about the clown. Like, it's the Poltergeist. Why is the clown on the poster? Like,
yeah,
even it wasn't even out then.
I was going to say maybe it was sort of drawing on the whole like the Annabelle craze at the time, maybe.
Yeah, because Annabelle came out 2014. Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah,
I just don't get these decisions sometimes. It's like you're basing a movie like 3 decades later, and then you decide to just put a clown on the cover and admit what Justin has.
Yeah,
the TV, which was like iconic.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember the trailers. I remember the trailers too for this remake. All the thumbnails were of the clown. And so it's like, okay, even if I watched the trailer, which I did, and the ending shot was the nose being pulled from the clown and then it's slowly winding back up and then it attacks the kid. It's like, well, I already knew that was going to happen because of the thumbnail.
There's sort of a darker side to the production of this movie and the sequels that followed. In the original, Dominique Dunne, who played Dana, the older daughter in the original, was actually murdered by her ex-boyfriend a few months after this movie came out. Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann, who went on to appear in Poltergeist 2 and Poltergeist 3, actually died age 12 of intestinal stenosis. Which is pretty sad. A couple of other people, I mean, people have referred to this as the Poltergeist curse. In the second movie, the guy that plays Reverend Henry Kane, Julian Beck, was actually dying when he made the movie. And as sad as it is, I think that kind of added to his portrayal. He's one of the creepiest portrayals of anybody in a movie ever. Just the creepiest old man you've ever seen. Will Sampson, who was in Poltergeist 2, he passed away a year or so after that as well. During the filming of all the movies, they had a lot of technical issues. Sometimes cameras weren't working. They were picking up on sounds that weren't meant to be there, and it kind of left a bitter taste in a lot of their mouths. A lot of them didn't really want to come back for the second and third movie because it was such a grueling filming process. Plus, there was that fear that they were tapping into something supernatural. And as we know, even now, all it takes is sort of like a rumor, some uneasiness before people start to believe something's cursed. And that's definitely something that happened with these movies, and is quite sad that, there was sort of a loss of a few lives that people have connected to these movies, which is, quite sad.
There's also on Shudder/AMC Plus or Prime, whatever. There's a documentary series called Cursed Films, and they do go into Poltergeist. So I think it's season 2. I'm not sure what episode number, but it talks a lot mostly about the first movie. It does touch on the second and third installments too. It's really fascinating because that entire Cursed Films documentary does go into other films like The Exorcist. I can't remember the other ones, but it was such a fascinating look at how, like, there's a lot of mass hysteria around, like, any use of, like, supernatural beings, or especially in the case of The Exorcist, like, what's a word? Blasphemy or something? Like, using the Lord's name in vain or whatever is seen as like, contributing to a lot of on-set accidents and near-death experiences, all that type of stuff. It's mind-blowing. And, like, people, I feel like people use that as like a marketing tool these days. Like every single horror movie now is like, oh, see the movie that caused people to vomit at the side of Art the Clown, or see the movie that led to a near-death experience. And it's like, okay, cool.
It's very interesting how that switched. It's like back in the day, it was like something that they didn't really want to have any attention brought towards, because it was just like, we want to go and see this movie and not be wondering about like, oh, is this a cursed movie, or like, is my involvement in this going to put my life at risk? But these days it's just like, well, blah 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 threw up at the cinema, or there was all these weird things. Go and see it. It's weird. It's freaky. Like it's just that change in marketing is kind of dark, but yeah, pretty interesting to look at.
I feel like Blair Witch did like some of the best marketing for that. I remember when I first watched that, and I actually was convinced that they. I was like, I was like, it's odd that this is out on DVD and that like someone's production is behind this, and these people are missing in real life.
Yeah.
And then they actually went into hiding, and they actually were told to just not appear in the public for whatever months. This is before internet, or internet was coming in, but they did such a good job that the way that they marketed that.
Yeah.
It would have been so much easier back then too, because I remember seeing the Blair Witch Project in 2002, and it was, I think, the first found footage movie I had ever seen, and there weren't that many around. Now there's been so many found footage movies that you almost have to do the traditional like movie making path to make it shocking or make it believable, whereas it's like, oh, another found footage, cool. There's like thousands of YouTubers who do the same thing with like ARGs and like that type of horror content, which I find more terrifying than a lot of horror movies we've covered. There's some really great ones which we should do probably like a special on ARG horror, because that shit is fucking fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
There are no faces. There are no faces. There are no faces.
So for ratings, I think I'm going to give it 8.5 stacked chairs out of 10. I feel like this is a classic movie that holds up really well. As we mentioned, some of the special effects and some acting here and there, not so much. But if you're willing to look past that and sort of get drawn into the charm of a really well-made 80s horror movie that can appeal both to horror fans and to people in general, even if you're not into horror, it's a classic, will always be a classic, iconic. They're here. Love it. Justin, what is your rating for Poltergeist?
I am going to give Poltergeist 8 out of 10. Reason being that I much prefer the sequel, Poltergeist to The Other Side, and I'm sure we'll cover that down the track. For me, that movie just improves on some things. There's also some really ridiculous parts of that sequel which do drag it down, but to me, I'll always love that more than the original. So for this one, 8 out of 10. Strong performances, strong story, it still holds up 40 plus years later. I mean, it's so weird to think this movie is 42 years old. Like, insane.
BP rating.
7.5. I'm feeling good. For someone that's actually probably watched this for the first time recently, I may have watched it in the past, but I don't think I did. Like you said, for a 42-year-old film to still have visuals that exceed or met and or exceed some of the films we've done and all the films that have been out is incredible. Props to Steven Spielberg. I think this is also a film that anyone like that's into horror, even if you're new to it, I think it's not a bad film to introduce someone to. Like, yes, it's 42-year-olds. Yes, it has some, like I said, some 80s vibes to it, which may not work exactly today. But I think overall, visually, the script, performances, and genuine scare factor is still there 42 years later. And I can see why it's, on the list for most people when it comes to horror movies. So I think 7.5 for a first time watch is more than adequate. Yeah.
I think that brings our average to about 8, I think. Yeah.
Mhm.
7, 8, and 8.5. Just for a bit of fun, I know it's not our typical versus episode, but what would you guys rate the remake?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to give the remake 5.5 out of 10. I do think there are some like genuinely scary parts in that movie. I just think it's overall a watered down Diet Coke version of the original. Actually, no, Diet Coke is good. Coke Zero version of the original. Yeah.
Fair enough. BP.
4.5. 4.5 out of 10. I mean, the other thing I didn't mention quickly was the lame ass opening titles of like the Poltergeist as shadows on the grass was a giveaway that this movie was going to be shithouse. visually in a lot of areas, like I said, see, visually in a lot of areas, it's great, and I like the use of drone footage and stuff, but it just feels a bit on the nose, a bit of product placement, and very 2015 horror at the time. And unfortunately, it's not coincidence, but it just seems to pull elements from other movies around that time. The casting's not the best, the script's not the best. It's a bit of an insult to the 1982 version, to be honest. Yeah, I would recommend people just watch the original and just leave this one. But 4.5, I think, is very generous.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of in the middle of you both. I would say 5 out of 10. As far as a standalone film, if you're not taking the original into consideration, I'm not sure if it was Justin or BP who said this, but I think serviceable is the right way to describe it. Like it's not amazing, it's not terrible, but it doesn't add anything new to the legacy. So I would give it 5 out of 10. Before we wrap this all up, I'd like to thank once again my co-hosts Justin and BP.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you, stalkers and monsters, for joining us for another episode. Not sated, not a problem. Like, share, and subscribe. We have lots to consume in our back catalogue and a plethora of more content on the way. If you enjoyed your time with us today, that's radical, dude. But if not...
Later, losers.